In the Philippines, the law has never been just a profession. It's a battlefield, a proving ground where intellect meets integrity, and where only a few ever rise to greatness. Across history, a rare breed of men and women stood out. They didn't just practice law, they defined it. Their names became symbols of courage, intellect, and moral strength. They stood their ground against tyrants, shaped the nation's conscience, and built the pillars of justice we stand on today. These are the legends, the giants whose mastery of the law turned them into history itself. They are the top 15 greatest lawyers in Philippine history. But the story doesn't end here, because the torch has been passed. A new generation of brilliant minds is rising. Young lawyers who carry the same fire, the same vision, and the same fight for truth. That's for part 2. But for now, let's honor the ones who started it all. Hello everyone, welcome back to Fun Fact, where brilliance meets history. Hit like, share, and subscribe. Because what you're about to witness is the legacy of those who turned law into legend. This list was not assembled by popularity, nor by blind reverence. It was built through deliberate curation, an audit of achievement, intellect, and historical influence. Each lawyer featured here was chosen after extensive verification of their academic background, career highlights, and contributions to the Philippine legal landscape. Every profile underwent a rigorous standard: educational excellence, mastery of legal philosophy, public impact, and historical weight. The information presented has been cross-checked against credible sources, official records, and academic accounts to ensure factual integrity and preserve the credibility this chronicle demands. And while many of these figures stood on opposing sides of political lines, we have set all politics aside. This work honors neither partisanship nor ideology, only truth, merit, and mastery. It recognizes achievement in its purest form, grounded in skill, intellect, and the weight of legacy. The result is not a product of sentiment. It is a monument to merit. The criteria for selection. To be included in this chronicle, each figure had to embody the essence of greatness in law, measured not by fame, but by influence and excellence. 1. Intellectual prowess. 2. Education and academic distinction. 3rd contribution to legal development. 4. Legacy and enduring impact. 5. Courage and conviction. Through generations, from the birth of the nation, Era 1, to the trailblazers of modern Philippine law, Era 5, these 15 names defined the highest standards of Filipino legal excellence. They were not just lawyers, they were architects of justice, titans of intellect, and unshakable guardians of the nation's moral core. Their words moved courts. Their decisions shaped history. They were revered by some, reviled by others, yet remembered by history itself. Now, presenting the best of the best, the brightest, the boldest, the eternal definition of legal greatness. They are the titans of Philippine law, the icons of justice and jurisprudence, the top 15 greatest lawyers in Philippine history. Number 1. Apolinario Mabini, 1864 to 1903. Mabini was the mind that gave the Philippine Revolution its direction, its conscience, and its laws. While others fought with weapons, he fought with wisdom, crafting the moral and legal foundation of a free nation. A brilliant graduate of UST law, he rose above poverty and paralysis to become the unshakable advisor of Emilio Aguinaldo and the architect of the First Philippine Republic. It was Mabini who framed the Malolos Constitution, wrote the true Decalogue, and set the principles that demanded government be moral, just, and accountable to its people. Even confined to his chair, his intellect commanded a revolution. Even in exile, his ideas traveled farther than any army could march. He proved that true power lies not in might, but in the mind that shapes a nation's destiny. The sublime paralytic, Apolinario Mabini, remains the first and purest symbol of Philippine legal genius. Number 2. Jose P. Laurel, 1891 to 1959. Laurel was not just a lawyer, he was a legal empire. They say his mind was so sharp it could cut through the Constitution itself. Laurel is the first of the top 20 lawyers in Philippine history who graduated from the most prestigious law school in the country, the University of the Philippines College of Law, or simply known as UP Law, in 1915. After UP, he conquered America's #1 law school, Yale, and proved that a Filipino could stand head-to-head with the best legal scholars in the world. He became Associate Justice at an age when others were still dreaming of passing the bar. As Associate Justice, he strengthened the judiciary and curtailed the powers of the president, limiting the abuse of authority. That decision reshaped the balance of power among the three branches of government. His intellect commanded respect. His reasoning was impeccable. In 1943, he became the third president of the Philippines and led the nation through the turmoil of the Japanese occupation while striving to uphold sovereignty. When he defended the Constitution before the Supreme Court itself, Laurel didn't just argue the law, he defined it. His legacy remains etched in every ruling that protects justice from tyranny. Number 3. Claro M. Recto, 1890 to 1960. Recto was the mind that gave the nation its backbone. Here's an intriguing tale from his academic past, an anecdote passed down through the years, often retold by historians, though rarely traced to its original source. He graduated Bachelor of Arts, maxima cum laude, from Ateneo, a resounding proof of brilliance that needed no second telling. Some accounts say he was denied entry to the famed UP College of Law, the country's first national university founded by American scholars from Yale, Harvard, and Michigan. But that didn't stop him. He took the UST entrance exam and passed it with ease. He later graduated from the UST College of Law with honors, proof that greatness is not defined by where one studies, but by what one becomes. He took the bar exams in 1913 and failed. Finally, in 1914, he conquered the bar and proved once again that true genius makes its own path. Recto led the 1934 Constitutional Convention and built the 1935 Constitution itself, the document that defined the Filipino Republic. He became Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, where his decisions echoed with logic and courage. But Recto's greatness didn't end in the courtroom. He stood against foreign domination when others bowed their heads. He called out American control of Philippine politics and demanded true independence, decades before it was fashionable to do so. He wrote, he debated, he defied, all in the name of national dignity. Recto was feared by the corrupt, hated by the subservient, but remembered by the wise. He was, and will always be, the fiery conscience of the Filipino nation. Number 4. Cesar Bengzon, 1896-1992. Bengzon was not just a justice, he was the law, personified. He graduated from the famous University of the Philippines College of Law in 1919 and immediately proved his brilliance, ranking second in the bar examinations. From then on, his rise was unstoppable. He became Associate Justice of the Supreme Court in 1945 and later Chief Justice, the highest seat in Philippine jurisprudence. But Bengzon didn't stop there. He went beyond borders. In 1966, he became the first Filipino ever appointed to the International Court of Justice, the world's highest tribunal. A Filipino judge standing shoulder to shoulder with the greatest legal minds on earth. At The Hague, he carried the Philippine flag with unmatched dignity, setting a standard no one has reached since. His judgments shaped the global understanding of justice and international law. Integrity, intellect, and honor. Bengzon embodied them all. To this day, he remains the only Filipino to ever serve on the International Court of Justice, a feat that speaks louder than any title. Cesar Bengzon didn't just practice law, he made the world listen to the voice of Filipino excellence. Number 5. Manuel A. Rojas, 1892 to 1948. Rojas was not just a lawyer, he was the architect of a nation reborn, the mind that built systems from ashes and gave order to freedom. He graduated valedictorian from the University of the Philippines College of Law in 1913 and topped the bar exams that same year. Before becoming president, he was already one of the principal authors of the 1935 Constitution, the very framework of the modern Philippine Republic. When the nation struggled to find its footing, Rojas provided its spine, drafting laws that shaped finance, governance, and sovereignty. He rebuilt the central bank system, restored fiscal order, and negotiated the Bell Trade Act, ensuring that economic recovery came with structure, not chaos. After the devastation of World War II, Rojas rebuilt the country's financial system and restored order as the first president of the independent Philippines. He served as Speaker of the House, Senate President, and finally, President, proving that law was more than words. It was the blueprint for nationhood. Rojas led the Philippines to full sovereignty in 1946, turning legal ideals into reality. He was a lawyer who shaped not just cases, but the destiny of a country. Number 6. Jose Diokno, 1922 to 1987. Diokno was not just a lawyer, he was the conscience of a nation. He founded the Free Legal Assistance Group, giving voice to the voiceless under tyranny. As a senator, he authored laws that defended civil liberties and championed social justice. When martial law gripped the Philippines, Diokno stood unbroken. He was imprisoned without charges, and yet never wavered, turning his cell into a pulpit of truth. He mentored generations of lawyers, teaching them that courage and integrity outweigh ambition. Diokno's moral clarity made corruption quiver and injustice falter. He exposed the rot in government with fearless speeches and fearless writings. The father of human rights in the Philippines, his name is etched in history as the ultimate symbol of legal brilliance and fearless advocacy. Number 7. Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr., 1917 to 1989. Marcos is perhaps the most controversial among the top 20 greatest lawyers in Philippine history. He's hated by some, but loved by others. You either hate him or admire him. That's the mystery of politics, loyalty that defies logic. But this list isn't about politics. It's not about saints or sinners. It's about the merit of intellect, the power of the mind. Many view Marcos as corrupt, oppressive, and greedy. Yet the fact remains, few lawyers in Philippine history ever commanded respect and awe quite like Ferdinand E. Marcos. This man was undeniably brilliant, however one may judge the rest of his life. He completed both his pre-law and law degrees at the country's premier institution, the University of the Philippines, graduating among the top of his class. In 1939, he took the bar examinations and obtained a score that sent whispers through Manila's top legal circles. Remarkably, he did this while in jail, a situation that would have crushed the spirit of most men. Instead of seeking counsel, he defended himself in court, argued his own case, and won. His intellect was legendary, but what truly set him apart was how he applied it. He drafted legislation that modernized local governance, strengthened provincial autonomy, and laid the legal foundations for national infrastructure development. In the Senate, Marcos wielded law like a master sculptor, shaping debates and reforms with precision, leaving colleagues in awe of his reasoning and strategy. He represented the Philippines on the international stage, negotiating treaties and agreements with remarkable legal finesse, proving that his brilliance was recognized far beyond Philippine shores. Marcos also taught at his beloved alma mater, UP Law, where he mentored young lawyers who would later rise to prominence. Every law he touched bore the mark of his intellect, Every policy he influenced reflected his vision. To speak of Philippine law without acknowledging Ferdinand E. Marcos is to overlook a towering figure, a man whose mind, skill, and ambition left an indelible imprint on the nation's legal and political history. Number 8. Joker Arroyo, 1927 to 2015. They called him the Dragon. And he earned it, not by fire, but by fearless defense of truth. A proud graduate of UP Law, Joker Arroyo became the first lawyer to challenge the declaration of martial law before the Supreme Court. When others cowered in silence, he stood alone, armed only with courage and the Constitution. He defended the country's bravest voices, Ninoy Aquino, Jose Maria Sison, Jovito Salonga, when no one else dared. From 1972 to 1986, he handled more human rights cases than any other lawyer in Philippine history. He co-founded FLAG and Mabini, creating a lifeline for the oppressed and giving law its noblest purpose: to protect, not to persecute. In Congress and the Senate, he became a moral compass, a public servant who never used his pork barrel, never missed a session, and never enriched himself. Joker Arroyo proved that true power in law lies not in position, but in principle. His legacy burns bright, a dragon whose fire was justice itself. Merlin Magalona. Magalona was one of the finest legal minds the Philippines ever produced, a scholar whose brilliance elevated the nation's understanding of law, beyond mere statutes and procedures. A former dean of the UP College of Law, he devoted his life to teaching generations of Filipino lawyers that the law must always serve the Filipino people. He stood as a leading voice in international law, representing the Philippines in global discussions on sovereignty, human rights, and self-determination. His works strengthened the legal foundation of the country's claims over its territories, including the West Philippine Sea, and helped define the Philippines' place in the international legal community. He challenged the uncritical adoption of foreign legal systems, urging the nation to build its own legal identity rooted in independence and national dignity. To him, sovereignty was not just a political right, it was the soul of the republic. In the halls of the University of the Philippines, he was more than a professor. He was a mentor whose lessons went far beyond the classroom. His students learned not only how to interpret the law, but how to think critically, stand with integrity, and uphold the ideals of nationhood. Merlin Magalona's legacy endures, a brilliant mind who gave the law its conscience, and the nation its voice in the world. Number 10. Heidi B. Yorac, 1936 to 2013. Yorac was a pillar of integrity in a time when truth was often negotiable. A scholar, a teacher, and a public servant, she stood as one of the rare figures who never bent to political tides nor compromised her convictions. Her mind was shaped by brilliance and principle. She earned both her pre-law and law degrees at UP, graduating among the top of her class, and went on to earn a Master of Laws from Yale University. As Commissioner of the Commission on Elections, she safeguarded democracy with the quiet strength of a woman who feared nothing but injustice. Later, as chairperson of the Presidential Commission on Good Government, she pursued the recovery of ill-gotten wealth. She faced political power with calm courage, proving that moral authority can be mightier than political influence. Even after her passing, her legacy endures, a symbol of how intellect, courage, and integrity can transform public service into a calling of the highest kind. Number 11. Jovito R. Salonga, 1920 to 2016. Salonga was a force of nature that reshaped Philippine law. He was principled, brilliant, and heroic. He's a product of three of the world's finest law schools, UP, Harvard, and Yale. He topped the 1944 bar exams with an astonishing 95.3%, a score that stood as the highest in Philippine history until it was broken in 1954. As a congressman and later a senator, he earned the respect of colleagues and citizens alike. The title of nation's fiscalizer became synonymous with his unwavering commitment to public service. After the people power in 1986, he accepted the government's request to head the Presidential Commission on Good Government. As PCGG head, he revived public trust in governance and the rule of law. He rose from the ashes of war. He survived imprisonment and torture during the Japanese occupation. Yet his spirit never broke. He became a staunch advocate of liberalization and national sovereignty. He consistently championed policies that reflected the Philippines' long-standing pursuit of independence and self-determination. As Senate President, he upheld his principles and voted to oust the U.S. military bases, a bold act that drew global attention. He authored landmark laws that defined the moral compass of governance. Among them are the Anti-Plunder Law and the Code of Conduct for Public Officials, both designed to uphold honesty and integrity in public service. To the end, Salonga proved that greatness in law is measured not by power, but by principle. Integrity, when paired with intellect, can shape a nation. 12. Estelito P. Mendoza, 1930 to 2025. The brilliant Estelito Mendoza was a phenomenon in Philippine law. Graduating cum laude from UP Law and earning his master's at Harvard, he proved early on that intellect has no borders. As Solicitor General for 14 years, he stood as the government's sharpest sword, winning landmark cases that defined constitutional boundaries and preserved state authority. His mastery of the courtroom was legendary. Judges listened, opponents trembled, and his words could bend the tide of litigation. He later became Minister of Justice, shaping national policies with the precision of a master craftsman, while leading the country's legal committee at the United Nations, putting the Filipino lawyer's intellect on the world stage. In private practice, he was known as the lawyer of last resort, the man called upon when the stakes were highest and defeat was not an option. A mentor to generations of lawyers, a mind that never dulled, and a name that commands reverence. Estelito Mendoza was, and will remain, the embodiment of legal genius and Filipino pride. Number 13. Hilario G. Davide Jr. Davide was the embodiment of integrity wearing a robe of law. A proud graduate of UP Law, he ranked third in the 1959 bar examinations, a feat that marked the beginning of an illustrious journey. He helped draft the 1987 Constitution, shaping the moral and democratic foundation of the modern republic. His mind carved the principles that keep the powerful in check and the powerless protected. As Chief Justice, Davide presided over the impeachment trial of President Joseph Estrada, a moment that tested the nation's soul. He stood firm, impartial, and unyielding, proving that justice could not be swayed by politics or power. Under his leadership, the Supreme Court was reformed, the judiciary strengthened, and ethical governance restored. Even beyond the bench, Davide served the country as the Philippines' permanent representative to the United Nations, bringing honor to the nation in the global arena. He was more than a jurist. He was the conscience of the courts, a guardian of democracy, and a man who proved that moral courage is the highest form of intelligence. Number 14. Francisco Frank Berter Chavez, 1947 to 2013. Frank Chavez was the grinder of justice, relentless, fearless, and unforgiving to corrupt power. He graduated cum laude from UP College of Law and took those lessons straight into the streets and the courts. During martial law, he defended hundreds of political detainees pro bono, putting his practice at the service of freedom itself. As Solicitor General under President Cory Aquino, he became the nation's legal hammer. He won 74 of 81 government cases, exposing scams, forcing reforms, and reviving public faith in the law. He blew the whistle on massive grafts, helped dismantle corrupt schemes, and never flinched when the powerful tried to hide behind procedure. His petitions reshaped government accountability and rewired the rules of public service. Frank Chavez did not chase glory. He chased justice, and the country was better for it. And finally, number 15, Miriam Defensor Santiago, 1945 to 2022. Miriam was a storm in Philippine law, brilliant, fearless, and relentless. She was the nation's fiercest graftbuster. Miriam conquered UP law with flying colors. Her intellect was unmatched, her grasp of law profound. She wrote books that became pillars of Philippine legal scholarship, annotated codes on the rules of court, penal code, and local government code. She mastered international law, leaving her mark on ASEAN treaties, the law of the sea, and global jurisprudence. She turned complex legal principles into lessons for generations of lawyers and scholars. She argued, adjudicated, and authored opinions that reshaped Philippine legal thinking. Miriam's courage was legendary. She fought corruption, stood against tyranny, and upheld justice without compromise. Her mind was a weapon, her pen a sword, her legacy a fortress of knowledge. To speak of Philippine law without acknowledging Miriam Defensor Santiago is to ignore one of its fiercest, most brilliant champions. And there you have it, the top 15 greatest lawyers in Philippine history. These are not just lawyers. These are legal titans who reshaped our laws, defended the helpless, and stood unshakable in the face of challenges. Each one left a mark so deep, generations of lawyers and citizens still feel their impact today. Remember, this list isn't about politics, popularity, or who shook hands with the powerful. It's about merit, intellect, courage, and contribution. Pure, unrelenting legal excellence. If this inspired you, show it some love. Like, share with friends, and subscribe to stay in the loop for more extraordinary Filipino stories. Your support keeps the spotlight on brilliance that deserves to be remembered.